out everything. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. For those of you who don't know, I am an intense, full-blown introvert. And socializing every day for 8 hours a day was a pretty big hit on my introvertness. So, anyways, I survived it. Here we are. Are you telling me you can't hear me? Hey, 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 low volume. You can't hear me? Super loud. It's super loud on my end. There should be no music on. Good morning. I guess it is afternoon for some. Definitely afternoon for some. Good morning. There's no music on. There's no music on. There's no music on. There is no music on. Not that I can hear. I don't see any music playing. There's no music. There's no music. Too low. It's all the way up. Oh, volume or the audio is not my friend. Not my friend. It's like super. You guys must be behind me. You're behind me like by a whole minute. Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, so I managed to survive the weekend. Sundays and Mondays are pretty much my days off. I've got pretty busy weekends going on, and the weeks are busy. So, anyways, I took some time to rest because that's what I needed. And for those of you who didn't hear, I'm a full-blown introvert, so socializing every day, 8 hours a day for 3 weeks straight was pretty taxing. So I had to take some much-needed time and chill. All right, so good morning. Thanks for joining me, guys. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about today. Laws and Chrystal Kizer. Last week, while we were doing the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, I saw in the chat somebody brought up Chrystal Kizer, the name Chrystal Kizer. So I took up on myself to look it up and learned some stuff and things that didn't make me happy, didn't sit well with my heart, and some things that made me angry. And I don't think it's probably what you think it is. So I'm going to share those things with you today. I'll start with the laws. So during the Rittenhouse trial, we saw, for those of you who watched with us or watched on your own, it was it was phenomenal. It was definitely a phenomenal trial. I definitely enjoyed my time watching it and learning things. I mean, the number one thing I love in life is still learning. High school may not have been very much fun, but since I've been an adult and I have been able to choose what I want to learn, I've had a lot of fun. And so during the Trump presidency, during the elections, I have never learned more about our voting systems in Congress and the presidency and impeachment. I've never learned so much about these things than I have in the last 5 years or so. And, that's the fun part about it. And I talk a lot about the fact that it's okay to be ignorant. It's not a big deal if you're ignorant to a subject. It's whether or not once the facts are presented to you, or you have the opportunity to go out there and learn the facts, learn the truth, whether or not you choose to remain ignorant. That's where the problem lies, right? So we have a lot of freedom in our country to learn the things we want to learn about, talk about the things we want to talk about. I use that term lightly just because we can talk about it wherever we want, except sometimes on big tech social media. But but for the most part, we can do and say what we want, right? And we have a lot of resources for us to research. So remaining ignorant shouldn't be an option. So during the trial, we saw that Kyle Rittenhouse started out with 7 charges. And over the course of the trial, we saw from day one, I was like, he is not guilty of number 7. Number 7, if you don't remember, was breaking the curfew, being out after the governmental curfew, which I said on day one was absolute trash. It never should have been a charge. He did not break a charge. The government is not his parent. The government can't tell him when and where he should be, right? And so I was saying day one, scrap it. I would never, as a jury, ever. I don't care if it's on the docket or not. I would never, as a jury member, convict anybody of breaking a governmental curfew, right? And it turns out they ended up throwing the curfew out. They had a motion for dismissal, and it was dismissed because it was an unlawful mandate to begin with. Now, I hope that sets precedent for a lot of people in these Democrat-run states like Oregon, Washington, California, who are still acting like complete tyrants. I hope that they can use that kind of thing for their good, because these mandates are not laws. There's a specific process that we go through to make our laws, and mandating people to stay in the house is not one of them, or to be in the house by 7 o'clock or whatever is not one of them. So they ended up throwing that out, which I cheered up and down. It should have been thrown out, should never been on there. The prosecution was stretching. They probably agree with the mandates because they're probably idiot tyrants too. So, it made sense to them. But the judge ended up throwing it out because it was unlawful to begin with. The second charge, which was the possession of a dangerous weapon under the age of 18, ended up being thrown out towards the end of the trial as well. It was like the day of closing arguments or something like that. We ended up seeing the gun charge, the possession of the dangerous weapon, being thrown out. Now, throughout the trial, many people had brought up what their idea of what that law was. And the Judge Schroeder, said on multiple occasions, people have an idea of what the law is, but I will be the one to give the jury instructions on what that law is when it comes time. And I was waiting for that because I wasn't sure if he was guilty of that or not. I mean, on the surface, it looks like it was kind of an undisputed thing and didn't really come up within the testimony, within the opening statements and arguments and such. It didn't really come up like whether either side was arguing for it or against it. It was almost like it was undisputed. So I was just kind of waiting for the judge to give the instructions on it for the jury to decide. And then, boom, it was thrown out. Okay, so I never got the judge to give me the instructions, right? So I took it upon myself because a lot of the argument with protesters and people who support child rapists have been saying Kyle should be in jail because he had a weapon that he shouldn't have had, right? And so you hear that argument over and over and over again. So I'm ignorant to the fact, and I'm like, okay, I don't know how to respond to this other than the clear as day fact that the fact that he had the gun doesn't change the self-defense, right? It's not so let's say a child is home alone, right? We could say anywhere between 9 and 13 or so, 9 and 15. Child's home alone, parents are gone, an assailant breaks into the house and is trying to attack the child, right? And the child happens to know where their parent's gun is, and they use the gun to shoot the assailant. They are still defending themselves. They may cop a charge for using the weapon. The parents could get a charge for having the weapon available. There are consequences to things in life, but the fact that they used the gun, although they were, a young child, doesn't change the fact that they were acting in self-defense. So it's the same with the Rittenhouse child. The fact that he possessed the dangerous weapon under the age of 18 did not change the fact that he acted in self-defense. Now, whether or not he should have been charged with this with breaking this law. I didn't know. And since it was thrown out, I was like, okay, well, obviously he didn't break the law, but still the judge never got to it. So I looked it up myself because I wanted to know. I had really been waiting for that. So I took it upon myself to look it up. And I wrote a little article about it. It's not the greatest, but hey, it gets to the point. It gets to it. You can find this on onamericanstreets.com. Onamericanstreets.com. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we have to remember when we're talking about laws here is there's different formalities. There's federal law and there's state law. Always the Constitution needs to come into play. A federal and a state law doesn't supersede the Constitution. It kind of goes through that different sections and titles and things. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into writing a law. You've got civil law, criminal law, constitutional law, statutory law. There's a lot of things that go into it. So you don't have really just my regular people, that aren't lawyers or in some type of law career, typically just reading the law on a daily basis. You do have some really, really like to do that. But for the most part, you don't have a lot of people just, let's just pick up the law and read it today. And it's a lot formally written. So sometimes there's a lot of big words that I don't fully understand. I have to use the thesaurus a lot. The dictionary is the most used app on my phone, dictionary and thesaurus, because a lot of times I need to find a synonym that I do know to help the sentence make sense. Anyways, then you've got kind of your main sections and you've got your subsections. So this is where I get to in this article. So Kyle Rittenhouse was originally charged with possession of a firearm under the age of 18. So on the surface, you see right here that this is the actual charge. It's Wisconsin, and this is a state law. So every state has their own gun laws, right? The federal, the gun laws have been distributed to the states. So that's why it gets really murky sometimes when you're dealing with gun laws, because every state has their own laws, and it can be broken down even more into each county having their own state laws. So it can get really muddy, and these are definitely things that we need to know. I mean, like I said, people don't typically just go out and start reading law, but it's important for us to know these things so that we know we're not breaking the laws, right? And then when people do approach us, we can give them a sound and solid answer. Under no circumstance do we ever want to act like the left and not have an answer, and so we just lose it and act all crazy. Because that's a lot of times, that boiled down quite a bit. Can I get some cold water in there, please? A lot of times what the leftists do, since they don't have a reason for why they're standing for anything, they just lose it, and then they start calling you names and they get violent because they don't have an answer. So people are always more confident when they have an answer, and it's a lot easier to stay cool, calm, and collected when you know what you're talking about. You know what you're standing for, right? So that's another reason why I like to look these things up and figure out, thank you, dear, what is going on. Okay, so on the surface, he was charged with possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under the age of 18. This is Wisconsin State Legislature, code 94860, okay? On the surface, he definitely broke this law. If you just read it and you stop there, which is a lot of what people are doing. This is they're saying he wasn't supposed to have a dangerous weapon under the age of 18, and they stop right there. And again, it's not like horrible to be ignorant to the fact. However, it goes on to say, so this is where the subsections come in. So it's 94860 is the main code law, and then it goes into these subsections. We've got one. It talks about in this section a dangerous weapon means, and so it means any firearm, loaded or unloaded, any electric weapon as defined in, and then the electric weapons you can go to code 941, 1C and A, and you can look at what constitutes an electric weapon. Metallic knuckles of any substance. It goes on and on and on. So then in Subsection 2, it talks about any person under the age of 18 who possesses or goes armed with a dangerous weapon is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor. Again, it's looking like, you know, he definitely broke this law. I mean, he's under 18. He went armed, right? So it goes on and goes on. Then in Section 3, okay, hold on. Okay, so then in Section 3C, so this is Section, 3A, it goes 3B and 3C. So I'll show you. Here's the next part. This is the same law code, 94860.60, and then it goes into subsection 3, A, B, and C. Okay, so now when we get down to 3C, it says, this section applies only to a person under 18 years of age who possesses or is armed with a rifle or shotgun if the person is in violation of. Then it gives us another law code, 941.28, or is not in compliance with subsection 29.304 and 29.593. Okay, so it also goes into this section saying this section applies to an adult who transfers a firearm to a person under 18. Okay, so we've got the main law, which is what he was charged with, 948.60, but then further on in that same law, it says, this is the actual law written. I don't know why it's doing that. It's getting kind of irritating. This is 3C. The section applies. So this is how it is written in there, right? Now, right off the bat, so what you would do is you would click on the link to the violation of section 941.28. Okay, so you would go and you would click on that and see what that says, right? Because then we have to see, well, was he in violation of this thing, right? So we jump over there, and it says in 94128, it is the law, code law 94128, possession of short-barreled shotgun or short-barreled rifle. Okay, so that's the actual law. In 1B and C, it says a short-barreled rifle means a rifle having one or more barrels having a length of less than 16 inches, measured from closed breech or bolt face to muzzle, or a rifle having an overall length of less than 26 inches. Likewise, in C, it says a short-barreled shotgun means a shotgun having one or more barrels having a length of less than 18 inches, measured from closed breech or bolt face to muzzle, or a shotgun having an overall length of less than 26 inches. So, then it also said if they're not in compliance with these two subsections, 29.304 and 29.593. I did go look at those, and those both have to do with hunting, and so they do not apply. However, since his shotgun was not in violation of this code, he did not break the law, the original law code of 948.60. It does not apply to him. And in addition, the federal constitutional law, section 25, says he has the right to keep and bear arms. The people have the right to keep and bear arms for security, defense, hunting, recreation, or any other lawful purpose. This is why the charge number 6, possession of a deadly weapon under the age of 18, was eventually thrown out. And that's also why, if you're listening to the trial, it said at some point they were kind of talking back and forth, and the judge said, are we going to give the jury a tape measure? Are they going to, and, the judge said, well, or the prosecution said, well, they can measure it or something like that, right? So the prosecution wanted the charge to stay on, and they wanted to depend on the jury to measure the length of the gun, do the measurements to see if he violated on their own. But what was the point in that? He already didn't break the law. Why are you charging him if you know the measurements of the gun? Why are you charging him to begin with? You're just going to leave it up to the jury to know that they should be measuring the gun? I mean, come on. So anyways, it was just another ploy by the prosecution to try and slip the jury up and get something in there and get him charged with something, although he did not break the law. So he did not break the law. It didn't apply to him. He has the right to keep and bear arms for security and defense, hunting and recreation, and any other lawful purpose. All right. So, well, they may have been told to measure it, maybe, maybe not. We don't know. It never got to that point. The fact of the matter is he didn't break the law, and the prosecution knew that. And the defense knew that as well. So that's why I'm assuming, I'm not a betting woman, but it's likely that's why it got, when they filed the motion to have it dismissed, that's probably why it was dismissed, because he wasn't a law he broke to begin with. So on the surface, like I said, on the surface, it looks as if Kyle broke the law, both a little more reading, a little more research, a little more digging. I have never read law before. This is my first time, and this was Wisconsin law. So even though I've learned this, when it comes to Oregon, I have to read those laws for myself, for my own state, and for my own county, which my own county that I live in is absolutely ridiculous. It's just horrible, horrible, horrible. But then also because I'm on the border, oh, and this was another thing, they say that he traveled over state lines. This was why this was a big thing, because different states have different laws. So because he's on the border, just like I am, we travel from Oregon to Washington quite a bit, just by crossing the bridge. We have to know what the law is for both of the states. And same with Wisconsin and Illinois. He has to know what the law is for both of the states. Now, he never crossed, his mom didn't drive him with an AR over state lines and drop him off with an AR in Wisconsin. That's not what happened. The gun was already in Wisconsin. He gave Dominic Black the money to buy the gun. So he paid for the gun, but he did not purchase the gun. When he turned 18, they were going to do a bill of sale, and he was going to get his gun back from Dominic Black. It was all legal. Everything was legal what they did. He did not break any laws regarding the law, the gun. So, you know, when people are making these arguments, they don't know. And like I said, that's fine. But the problem starts when they don't want to learn. That's my issue. And so we just got to make sure that we're not skimming over these things, that we do take the time to educate ourselves, do our due diligence. You know, and the Bible is the same thing. The Bible says the same thing. Study to show yourself approved. You know, that is an important thing. Even the Bible says it. When it comes to, you know, studying the word and knowing what God says and what he doesn't say. Because, you know, one of those things out there, I don't know if you ever watched, I watch a lot of documentaries, a lot of true crime, a lot of investigational type things. And, you know, one of the things I learned years back is that our people don't study counterfeit money. They study real money. They study the money that is legitimate. They study it and then they study it some more, and then they study it some more. They study the real so that they can spot the fake. They don't study the fake. The fake will always change. The fake will always change. There'll always be a new version of fake. There'll always be a new version of a lie. When people lie, they will lie different every time. I mean, Gross Grits is a prime example. He lied when he gave a statement to the police. He lied on the stand. He lied the next day with Good Morning America and you know, all the different interviews he was giving. His lie will forever change, right? So that is one thing that we have to remember, is that the lie will always be changing and morphing into something different. But if you study the truth, right? If you study the word, if you study the truth, study what's right, study the law, study what's right, study the legitimate dollar, right? Then you can spot the lie. Then you have a solid argument. Then you have something to offer. Then you can, and then you're going to make the leftists cry because they're not going to know how to respond because they don't know what they're talking about. So this was really good. And so these were some of the sources if you want to go and look for those yourself. This was the law code that he was originally charged with, the law code that that it breaks down into, and then, of course, the Wisconsin Constitution, Section 25. Excuse me, and you can find this at onamericanstreets.com. Okay, so the next thing that really stood out to me. Okay, so like I said, I was looking into okay, so real quick, you know what? I didn't get to watch the interview yesterday. I only watched a little bit of it because it was past time, and I can't find where to watch the whole darn interview. I was super irritated by that. I was like searching and searching and searching. I'm not good. I can search certain things out, and then other things just completely evade me. I don't know what the deal is. So if anybody has a link to the full, anybody have a link to the full, yeah, David Bradshaw, the leftists just, they're brain dead at this point. I don't know if there's another explanation for it. But if anybody has a link to the full interview, can you please post it so I can watch it? I watched a little piece of it. You know what? Kyle is so well spoken. He's so with it. And I think that's why I loved his testimony with Binger so much, is because he isn't lying, you know, and so it's really nice to watch people who aren't lying, because you can't trip them up, right? And his facial expressions with Binger when he was asking him stupid questions, he was just like, well, it's just a game. Like, so it was like he was so regular, you know, he's just literally a 17, 18-year-old kid that is doing live. So I really enjoyed watching the little piece of it that I did watch. Of course, the left will spin that out of all kinds of different ways. Linwood did do something, and I didn't look that up. I did not. What Linwood would do with 1 million. I don't know what Linwood did. I'll have to look that up. Okay, so he is wise. He's very wise for his age. Don't be a binger. Okay. So anyways, last week when we were doing when we were watching the trial, someone brought up this woman's name here. Her name is Chrystal Kizer, and she is a 17-year-old girl. Well, she was 17 at the time when it happened, who shot and killed her abuser. Okay, this is him. This is the abuser. His name was Randall something or another. Okay, so here's what I want to look at. So this is what I found first. So I had not heard about her at all. This happened back in 2018, and I hadn't heard about her at all. So I go and look her up, and the first things that kind of pop up are these petitions. Okay, so this is a petition from change.org. This is just one of the many petitions, right? So this one actually has almost 150,000. I came across one that had 1.5 million signatures on it. So it was kind of a big deal at one point, but I had never heard of it. So I start reading through the petition, and I'm like, oh, man. So, you know, I'm like, if anybody's listened to me last week, I actually was talking about sex trafficking. And it's a subject that I hold very high in priority. It was one of those things that I was saying, you know, they're constantly sacrificing our children. California actually changed the law in the state of California that legalized prostitution, and their argument was that they legalized prostitution so that they wouldn't have to arrest and prosecute the women, okay? Instead of just arresting and prosecuting the Johns and the pimps, they changed the law to legalize prostitution so that they weren't forced to arrest and prosecute the women. many of which, I'd venture to say most of which, there are some women who choose that life because things in their lives have made them think that they are not worthy for anything else. But most of those women were sold into sex trafficking very early on in their lives. They were very young. And so it's all they know. They're being hindered by pimps, or being beat up by Johns. And so they're constantly sacrificing our kids, right? I have a heart for this. And it really bothers me when I started reading to hear that this girl, 17 at the time, shot and killed her abuser, and they locked her up. And she was in jail for 2 full years. Her bail was set at $1 million. And she had no friends and family to pay that for her, right? And apparently nobody would step up. Like for Kyle Rittenhouse, Mike Lindell actually stepped up and paid his bail. But Kyle Rittenhouse was actually in jail for quite a bit of time. I don't think even people even know that he was in jail for quite a bit of time. And without running water. Criminy. Okay, so the fact that this girl got locked up at all was really disturbing. But here's the problem. As I started reading more, they started making it about a race thing. You know, well, black girls this and black girls that and disproportionate this and disproportionate that. And, you know, they made it a race thing, which, again, this is a subject that is very near and dear to my heart and a top priority. But even me, when people start making it a race thing, I pull back. I distance myself because it shouldn't be about the color of her skin. It should plainly be that she is a young girl who was sex trafficked and she was abused and she killed her abuser, her active abuser. That's what it should. What do you got going on here, dear? That's what it should be about. And that may be why this didn't get more steam. Because when you make things about race, and I've said this 100 times before, when people make things about race, people withdraw from it because we are not living in 1820 anymore. I've told, and this is an unpopular opinion, and I really don't care much if it's an unpopular opinion. The facts are there, and like I said, it's okay to be ignorant, but if you don't want to see the facts, then I don't, there's nothing else that I can do. Our forefounders were racist. They wrote the Constitution, and the 13th Amendment is when black people actually became considered a full voice. Now, if you know anything about Jewish culture, women weren't considered a full voice. So it took a woman had to have 3 witnesses to every 1 man, right? So she was 1/3 of a voice of men. And the Constitution, our founding fathers didn't consider black people a full voice, right? They were only 1/5 of a voice. It was actually less than the women in Jewish culture. So, okay. So if you don't consider a person, and they only have 1/5 of a voice, something was wrong. Okay. However, we are not living with them anymore. And they still wrote a very good, they still have a very good Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of that is still very sound, right? However, we are not living in those days anymore with those people. We're not even living with their children or their grandchildren anymore. We're not living with those people. We are living with a structure that they created, which is still very good, right? Everybody has the same rights today. We have seen the progression of that happen within the Constitution, within the amendments. The 13th Amendment gave full voice to the black population. Women were able to start voting, so because women weren't even considered to be able to vote. They didn't have that option. So we have seen the progression happen, right? And that is totally fine because things do get better over time. What we're seeing now is we're going backwards, okay? The black population, the BLM movement is bringing us backwards again. We're going back into segregation. We are making everything about race. We've got a black population who is extremely racist. they hate white people. And I believe a lot of this started with Obama, the first black president and also the second black president. He was voted into office twice, okay? So it's really disturbing to me when people make everything about race, because we are not living with racist people. There are racist people in the world, but they are a very big minority. They're a very big minority. Most people are not racist, and when you make everything about race, it makes them distance themselves from whatever the subject is. So I believe that's what happened with Chrystal Kizer. She should not be in jail, right? She acted in self-defense. And I hope that people can, what I'm asking is, if you look this girl up, try to not distance yourself from the racial garbage that they've added to it, because she matters, and it's not necessarily her fault that people are using her story as a racial issue, because this young girl, she's now 19, she was finally bailed out. But I noticed this when I was reading it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm distancing myself. And I didn't want to. I was like, okay, no, hold on. Stop doing that. Come back. But it was like the further I read, it was like, ugh. I can't stand it. I really can't stand it, because it shouldn't matter what color she is. She's a 17-year-old who defended herself, and the prosecution in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we're talking the same people Binger hangs out with, charged her and held her in jail for 2 years. Don't be a Binger. I don't know even how much more I can say this. Don't be a Binger. This guy is complete trash. And I said this, it's not just him. I said this during the trial as well. If Kyle Rittenhouse had a Binger, he would be in jail for the rest of his life. A lot of times, it depends on the lawyer you have. And these court-appointed lawyers, these state court-appointed lawyers, are not good people. Something is going on behind the doors where they are trying to fly through these cases rather than actually do due diligence and really defend their clients. I'm sorry, this is just a horrible, horrible situation. And we saw this, if anybody's ever watched the Khalif Browder story on Netflix, it actually says a lot about the justice system and the state-appointed attorneys that are trying to get people to take plea deals, even if they didn't do the thing, because they don't have time, because our court system is so backed up. I said, I shared last week that I got a speeding ticket. It was a photo speeding ticket back in 2020, or was it the end of 2019? I can't remember. It was one of the two. It was a photo. I want to say it was at the end of 2019. I got a photo, but I wasn't paying that because it wasn't fair. Like, I should not have gotten the ticket, is what I'm saying. So I signed up to get a trial, right? Because I was not paying that, not even a little bit. And so a lot of times you can go down and you can talk to the little window lady and they'll just give you an automatic discount. And I was like, no, I'm not paying a $170 ticket that I shouldn't get. So I wanted a trial or whatever. Well, then everything shut down because of COVID. And so all the courts shut down. And so the whole year went by, 2020 went by, and I finally received something in the mail in a few months back, asking me if I still wanted. So it was like starting over all over again. Well, I wanted a trial still. So I sent this thing back in, and they sent me back. My trial is set for April of 2022. So I got a speeding ticket at the end of 2019, and my trial date for it is in April of 2022. That's just for a speeding ticket, y'all. The amount of things that are going on in our world, our justice system is so backed up. They are totally doing shortcuts. They do not want to try these people. They do not want to try cases. They do not want to do the research. They do not want to investigate. They want people to take plea deals and get it over with. And, okay, so this girl, she's 17 years old when she shot and killed this guy. Here's the kicker. This is why she should have never even been in jail. Here's the kicker. He was already under investigation for child trafficking and molestation and rape. It was on video. And if she had not killed him, they were getting ready to, arrest him and charge him with something, right? But she ends up killing him. And then I give her a round of applause, but the legal system doesn't necessarily see it this way. Then she sets his house on fire. She set his house on fire, and she left. Ow. No, what are you doing? Okay. Okay. She shoots and kills him because he is raping her. This is her story, and he's already under investigation for this anyway. She shoots and kills him, sets his house on fire, steals his car, and goes and flees, right? So the prosecution is saying, no. It wasn't self-defense, even though they already know that he's doing this stuff. It wasn't self-defense. She planned all this because she wanted to steal his car. Don't be a binger, guys. Don't be a binger. What nonsense. This is the same kind of thing. And you know what? This is on the same level as BLM and all these leftists lifting Joseph Rosenbaum, the child rapist, up as a hero. That is on the same level. Same level. The prosecution thinks that she wanted this guy's car. Really? They are all cut from the same cloth. All these leftists are cut from the same deranged, delusional, brain-dead cloth as far as I'm concerned. It makes no sense. I saw somebody say sometimes you just got to learn to say thank you and move on. Kyle Rittenhouse killed a woman strangler, and a child rapist. Sometimes you just got to learn to say thank you and move on. This girl literally killed her abuser, who was already under investigation, who had multiple tapes of it happening, videotapes of it happening, and we just need to learn to say thank you and move on. Why is she in jail? So then 2 years later, she is finally bailed. BLM says it was them. I don't necessarily think, I don't know. It was a Chicago Community Bond Fund. It was raised money for her to pay. Her bail was originally set at $1 million, but the judge lowered it to $400,000. And so she was released, but she's still awaiting trial. So there's been a lot of talk about Kyle Rittenhouse's defense picking up her case, which I think would be absolutely amazing if they would do that. But again, it's not because she is black. It is because of the way that our laws are written, right? So we saw a lot of video for the Rittenhouse case. We saw him being chased. We saw him be assaulted with the skateboard. We saw him on the ground. We saw him have a gun pointed to his head. We don't have video of this guy doing something to her. All we have is her word. Now, I don't know. I feel like as a humanity, that should be enough. I feel like the videos of him sexually assaulting the other children should be enough. But you know, unfortunately, yeah, her bail should have been $1. Yeah. It's just crazy. It's crazy how this stuff works. She never should have been charged. So they tried to get her immunity. They were trying to argue for immunity, but they said that has never, affirmative defense. That's what it was. They tried to argue affirmative defense, right? If her attorneys could prove that her actions against Fuller were a direct result of the trafficking she experienced. And so, but they said that that's never really happened in a homicide case. But you know what? I don't think that this should be a problem. But we should all be backing this, right? But again, it's not because the color of her skin. It's because of the way the laws were written. And the laws are not, I would say they're not perfect. But there are so many of them. There's so many facets to them, like what I just went over with the whole gun charge, the possession. You saw how many sections were just in that one little thing. They go over everything, right? And it's really tough. But the fact that there's proof that he was trafficking and it's on video, she should have never been in jail. And we should all be able to get behind this. And I hope that the Rittenhouse defense takes her on. But we need to stop seeing things like this. We see these cases as incredibly important to protect and uplift and support the individual women who are overwhelmingly black women. There's more than one reason why they're overwhelmingly black women, and I guarantee you it's not because of white supremacy. It goes back to what I've talked about again in the last few weeks. Inner city children typically only see two ideas of success: athleticism and entertainment. And the chances of them becoming a great singer, getting in a girl band or boy band, or becoming a major league player in some sport are slim. Does it happen? Yeah. But that is slim. If they had an education of options, meaning instead of pipelining them through into college, which they're likely not going to get there because the education system is so crazy and it's so expensive. If they were able to pipeline them through to a successful things like trades, and they saw success in a different way, they could be successful and it wouldn't be overwhelmingly black women, right? So this is just, and the drug dealers being overwhelmingly black men. It's because they only think, okay, either I have to be a successful entertainment or successful athlete. Well, that's not going to happen. So then this is my other options. That's horrible. There's such a big, it's like one extreme or the other. But there's so much stuff in the middle where they could actually be building their own businesses and being entrepreneurs and building generational wealth for themselves and their families to come. There's so many options out there that they just aren't aware of because we're so busy with LeBron James and Don Lemon and Joy Reid and Oprah Winfrey, who are acting like there's no way to get where they got. There's no way. You can't do it. You're just too oppressed. It'll never happen for you. You can't do what I did. Apparently, they're the unicorns in life, right? That's what we have. We have these black talking heads who are literally lifting up child molesters as heroes. They're lifting up child molesters, child rapists. I'm talking like a severe raping of little boys. Those are the people they're lifting up as heroes. Heroes. Those are the heroes. I'm just baffled by this. I've spent the last couple of days just completely, I haven't spent a whole lot of time. In the first couple of days, I didn't spend a whole lot of time online because I just needed to rest. But, you know, I posted that one video of the guy saying that they took 2 beautiful black lives. Bro, that's not even ignorant. That's just plain stupid. Like, that's just brain dead. Brain dead. The amount of inaccuracy that they've let come out of this trial is absolutely crazy. The fact that they said that black lives were taken? What? Like, you can't, that's not ignorance. That's just stupid. That's just, is there anything in there? Hello? You know? But it's the black talking heads that are doing this. These people have got to turn these TVs off. This is crazy. I mean, I just say break them and throw them out the window because they are making so many people dead. It's absolutely crazy. Okay, so this goes more into, it's not a whole lot of information, but it goes kind of into what they're trying to prove as far as the sex trafficking. And then it falls on the state to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that either she wasn't a victim of human sex trafficking or that the crime that she committed was not a direct result of that human sex trafficking. You know, I think that they would say that it would set a precedent. You know, if she gets off, it would set a precedent that anybody who's being sex trafficked or abused can just kill their abuser. Well, I'm not sure if that's even a bad thing. If more rapists had a more violent end, maybe they would stop doing it. You know, we saw another story about a guy who raped 4 girls and then he was sentenced to no time in jail. Again, they're constantly sacrificing the children. What is with that? They're sacrificing the children. This guy raped girls and he got no time in jail. How does that even happen? They're sacrificing the children. It constantly. This goes back to being a class system. It's not a race system. It's a class system, and this class system is constantly sacrificing the children. It's absolutely asinine. I don't fully understand it. So, anyways, that's what I wanted to bring forth. I hope that more people will look Chrystal Kizer up and get behind that and try your best to not fall under that racial film that's woven in through all of it. I know that it's tough. I do. I really do. Because even I, like I said, even I distance myself and it makes me sick. But because she is so important, I hope that everybody can get behind her, get her story out there. Chrystal Kizer, she's not in jail right now. She was bailed, but she still faces these issues, and she should be set free, like so many other girls and boys out there who are in the sex trafficking system. And unfortunately, the United States is one of the top consumers, and it's super disgusting to me. And that's why I said the Johns and the pimps are the ones that need to be, and that's not just men. Women have definitely got on there. Are definitely in there, but U.S. citizens are one of the top consumers, and it's a supply and demand thing. If there was no demand, we wouldn't need a supply. And years ago, when I did the research, 800,000 children a year went missing, and not all those children are murdered. Some of them, yes, not all of them. They're in sex trafficking rings. So it's not new, guys. It's not new. This is normal. Unfortunately, this is normal. It happens. It's common. So we definitely need to get behind that. It's not a conspiracy theory by any means. And so also, has anybody been paying attention to the Ghislaine Maxwell trial? They started the jury selection, and the final 18 will be chosen, and the trial will start November 29th. If that was, they say it's supposed to last 6 weeks. Yeah, it shows you all the things, but don't rip it off, okay? Because we don't want to lose that. It's supposed to last 6 weeks. If that was aired, which I highly doubt that it will be, if that was aired, I would definitely cover that. I really, really, really want to see that. So, okay, guys, that is going to be it for today. We're not doing 8 hours today. 8 hours is a long time, but anyways, that is it for today, and hopefully, I don't know, should I do this every day, or should I do it every other day? What are your thoughts? Is this a good time? Should it be like a different time? Should it be earlier? Should it be later? You know, throw your ideas out there, and I will read through them. I'm going to leave it running. I got to, just so you guys can get your ideas in there, I'm going to leave it running. But, yeah, let me know, what is a good time of day? Should it be every day? Should it be every other day? Like twice a week? Like Tuesdays, Thursdays? What's up? Thanks for hanging out with me today. This show is brought to you by onamericanstreets.com. onamericanstreets.com. I'm going to be writing a lot more on there about current events, but even more so about, building legacies and generational wealth and homeschooling and different things, trying to put some education out there in the face of the blatant lies that the media is sharing. So, anyways, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you, and I will see you next time.